Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream Sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream Queen Size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal Queen Size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this Monday. Glad to have you join me. Hope you had a great weekend. We said our goodbyes to Charlie Kirk yesterday. More than 200,000 mourners descended upon Phoenix, Arizona. They flooded the State Farm Stadium where President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, and many others spoke and talked about the impact that Charlie Kirk had had in his 31 years. We have the highlights for you in today's show. The word martyr has been used frequently since Charlie Kirk's assassination. Is he a martyr? We'll dig a little deeper on what it means to be a martyr. Elon Musk and President Donald Trump were seen together in an executive suite at the State Farm Stadium yesterday during the memorial service. Maybe the service had a way to heal old wounds. We have that update for you, too. And President Trump promised a big announcement today concerning a health care issue. The president first mentioned the announcement on Saturday, then gave a little more details while speaking at Charlie Kirk's memorial, suggesting there will be some major news on autism today.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So yesterday afternoon, for the better part of about 5 hours, we remembered a husband, a son, a friend, and whether you loved him or loved to debate him, a force of nature, Charlie Kirk. The memorial service in Glendale, Arizona felt less like an event and more like a national moment. Picture it, a sea of red, white, and blue filling the Arizona Cardinal Stadium with overflow spilling into an arena next door and thousands more enduring the scorching desert heat outside. People lined up before dawn, some as early as 4 a.m., parking miles away and walking in determined to say goodbye and say, "We're still here. The mission continues." And that was the overall theme. From the stage, there were tears, there was laughter, and there were those unmistakable moments that define a life lived loudly for faith and freedom. There was forgiveness. One of the most touching moments was when Erica Kirk publicly forgave the accused shooter.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Wow, what a powerful, powerful moment. There was a who's list of speakers. Again, lasted about 5 hours. Donald Trump Jr. took the mic and, true to form, grabbed the room's attention with an impression of his dad that brought the house down. You could see the big guy, President Trump, up in the suite, smiling and shaking his head. For a few moments, sadness gave way to laughter, reminding us that even in mourning, that there's a place for a smile, a place for laughter. It was a human moment in a day full of them.
Welcome, everyone. I'm not widely known for being a sentimental guy. Anyone who's seen me on social media knows I'm far more likely to crack a joke or get myself in trouble for posting some grossly inappropriate memes than I am to shed a tear. I know this because I've even gotten the call from that guy a couple times. You know, Don, you're getting a little aggressive on social media, Don. Relax.
And again, it was just an afternoon filled with stories like that as people remembered their friend Charlie Kirk. There was a quieter, sort of a heavier note, one that cut to the heart of why Charlie mattered to so many. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recalled a conversation with Charlie about death, saying that there are a lot of worse things than death. The Secretary spoke of Charlie's faith and how he has changed history.
Charlie's overarching passion was his Christianity and his devotion to his God. He believed what St. Francis taught us almost 1,000 years ago, that we should strive to live our lives in perfect imitation of Christ. That we should turn every day and every moment and every interaction into a prayer. And Charlie understood the great paradox that it's only by surrender to God that God's power can flow into our lives and make us effective human beings. Christ died at 33 years old, but he changed the trajectory of history. Charlie died at 31 years old, but because he had surrendered, he also now has changed the trajectory of history.
You know, RFK Jr. gives Charlie credit for being in the Trump administration, where he is today. And again, from there was just a long list. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth reminded everyone that Charlie once wanted West Point. He didn't get in. He said that the Secretary of War said his personal loss was our nation's great gain, meaning that Charlie may not have gone on to have found TPUSA and build it into the organization that it is today had he gone to West Point. United States Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard spoke like a field commander, rallying her troops. She called on conservatives to step into the arena and to sharpen their weapons of truth. Truth was a common theme. A lot of people talked about truth. Secretary of State Marco Rubio shared something important. He admitted that he was skeptical of a young Charlie Kirk years ago. He said, "Why don't you start somewhere easier like communist Cuba?" He joked as he got some big laughs. But then he turned and said that the wisdom Charlie carried at just 31 usually takes a lifetime to acquire. That's not the kind of tribute that a room forgets. The arena wasn't just dignitary luminaries, though. It was family. It was a lot of people who had traveled many, many hours to get there. It was Turning Point staffers and students, pastors and policy people, moms with kids, dads with flags. You looked across that stadium and you saw a cross-section of a movement that Charlie had helped build. In the stands, the FBI Director, Kash Patel, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, as I mentioned, spoke. They were shoulder to shoulder. Tens of thousands of ordinary Americans, ordinary except for the extraordinary commitment it takes to stand for hours in desert heat just to be in the building. And it filled up pretty quickly. It was soon after they made the announcement that no one else would be admitted in, and they redirected the rest of the crowd to the overflow arena next door, which reportedly held another 20,000. Tucker Carlson spoke. He stepped up, talked a lot about faith. He said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." He said the quiet part out loud, the part that so many of us felt, that Charlie's message at its core was about his relationship with Jesus Christ, was about the gospel. Tucker called people not merely to vote, but to repent. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, she has the nickname of the Ice Maiden. She was clearly emotional as she talked about her friend, Charlie Kirk. And again, the list goes on. Stephen Miller, Sergio Gore, just a list of people who were there to honor their friend Charlie Kirk. And people who, in many cases, had never even met Charlie Kirk was there as well. One last image to leave you with. And we all saw it on TV. As the service closed, as the president gave his address and wrapped things up, you could just feel the grief, but yet the gratitude. And that final moment, as the president is standing there embracing Erica Kirk, as he just put his arm around her, and as she put her head on his shoulder, comforting her, comforting this young lady who has a lot of life to live and raise 2 kids. It's going to be tough. But she appears to be a strong woman, and I think the president's hug and the president's message for the nation was, we're there with you. Charlie, we're not going to forget you. Erica and the kids, we're not going to forget you either. Let's be honest, those summer vacations and backyard barbecues added some extra pounds, right? But instead of feeling guilty or falling further behind, it's time to reset, drop the weight, and get back in control. The solution isn't a shot. Real lasting weight loss starts with your mind, not your mouth. At PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team help you uncover the real reasons behind your weight gain so that you can reprogram the way you think about food forever. PhD clients lose up to a third of their body weight without ever taking a drug. I know because I lost 33 pounds with PhD Weight Loss. Through real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science, your body can become a natural fat-burning machine. Why risk spending thousands on shots that strip away muscle, come with dangerous side effects, and leave most people regaining 60% of the weight within a year? With PhD, you'll activate your body's natural appetite control, burn fat safely, and stay in control. Even if you're already on Ozempic, PhD can help you transition off while still losing weight. Take the first step today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. As we listen to the many who spoke yesterday about Charlie Kirk, there was a word that was used quite frequently, a word that's been flying around since Charlie Kirk's memorial, since his death, not quite 2 weeks ago. The word martyr. Speaker after speaker used it. They also said his voice will be louder now than it was in life. So what are they getting at? What does this mean? In plain terms, a martyr is someone who takes the hit so a cause doesn't be ignored. Someone whose silencing backfires on the people who wanted them quiet. In politics, in culture, in media, that dynamic is as old as history and as modern as your phone. Let's keep it simple. A martyr is a person who pays a price. Sometimes the ultimate price because he refused to recant what he believed. You don't have to be a theologian to see the pattern. When powerful forces try to shut down a voice, as they were trying to do Charlie Kirk, it often does the opposite. It multiplies the message. Call it the Streisand effect with higher stakes. The more you punish speech, the more the public leans in and wants to hear it. That's why people at the memorial use the word martyr, not as a slogan, but as a sign of what happens when a movement loses a pivotal voice, like Charlie Kirk. Others step in, and the message gets harder to cancel. Now, in the Christian world, of course, the original Greek martyrs meant witness. Not a social media witness, not a half-awake opinion, but a person whose life, and sometimes death, bears witness to the truth about Jesus Christ. That could be applied to Charlie Kirk as well. The first martyr the church remembers is Stephen in Acts 7, who died praying for the very people stoning him. That's the pattern. Faithfulness until the end. Courage, matched with clarity, conviction, matched with forgiveness. A martyr isn't celebrated for loving conflict. A martyr is remembered for loving Christ more than his or her own safety, his and her own comfort. Charlie wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But he was unapologetic about core ideas: individual liberty, the dignity of work, the value of tradition, the importance of American exceptionalism, and the basic truth that young people deserve the full marketplace of ideas, not just what the gatekeepers, what the educational institutions want them to hear. He pressed those points hard on campuses, on air, online. He made powerful opponents, and when a public figure like that is taken from the stage, is tried to be silenced, supporters don't just grieve, they mobilize, and that's what we witnessed yesterday. That's the secular logic behind the martyr label. The attempt to silence ends up amplifying the message. One of Charlie's longtime friends and one of the executives at Turning Point USA, Mikey McCoy, was one of the first speakers yesterday to declare that Charlie was a martyr.
11 days ago, my friend was martyred for using his voice to engage in peaceful dialogue. Charlie's assassin thought that he could steal and silence his voice by putting a bullet in his neck. In the words of Soren Kierkegaard, the tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule has just begun. Charlie was not silenced. His movement is only beginning. The voices of millions globally have been awakened, furthering his cause and mission far beyond anyone's comprehension. We won't cower in fear. We will never surrender. We are resolved to live free from lies and seek out what is true. We will respectfully, boldly, challenge what is accepted by culture in order to seek out what is true and acceptable to God Almighty alone.
I've always been impressed with some of the young people who are at the executive level at Turning Point USA. Yesterday, hearing some of them speak just reinforced that. Mikey McCoy is a fine example of the future of Turning Point USA. But also Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College. You probably heard him many, many times. He explained, too, how the assassin ended his own life while elevating Charlie to eternity.
Young people, and I'm very privileged I get to know many inspiring young people who are the best I ever saw. Charlie is the only one who was never a full-time student at Hillsdale College who was on that list. We will miss him dearly. He can't be replaced. Do you know, a good thing is a thing that has being. An assassin is not a thing that has being. The assassin must give up his humanity to destroy something that has being. Charlie lives on. The assassin will die.
And he's right. Charlie's message will continue through Turning Point USA. So how do we honor the man and the mission, the martyr, Charlie Kirk? We speak up. Not with rage, but with compassion and with the facts. Not with slogans, but with substance. We show up at school board meetings. We write op-eds. We ask questions at shareholder meetings. We post clips, and we try to change minds. We mentor people. We buy them coffee. We hand them a book that we think they should read that would be important. We support organizations that defend speech and due process. When rules are enforced fairly, debates improve and tempers cool. There's a whole list of things that we as everyday citizens can do. Don't become what you fight. The point of free speech isn't to replace one blacklist with another. The point is to widen the lane so that many Americans feel safe to disagree and then shake hands afterwards. The point is for us to live by our courage of convictions. If the goal was to erase Charlie Kirk's influence, if this shooter was acting alone or if he was acting with the support of others, they failed. They failed miserably. The message he pushed, open debate, love of country, skepticism of elites who want to manage your life, now has more messengers than it did just a few weeks ago. We saw a couple 100,000 of them yesterday. We can all help Charlie Kirk's legacy not only survive, but thrive. There's been a lot of discussion over these past 2 weeks since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Every day, it seems there's a new theory of what really happened. Like everything, there's a lot of ideas floating around. Most believe that it was an assassination by a lone gunman who turns out to be a single troubled young man. Others believe that's too simple of an answer. There's all kind of stories out there of hand signals and people tipping their hat to give a shooter a signal somewhere. There's a lot of theory about the bullet and why the bullet did not exit Charlie's neck. Andrew Kovac is a longtime friend of Charlie's, his radio producer, podcast producer, and, of course, part of the Turning Point USA team. Over the weekend, he posted a short video of his explanation and talked about his conversation with the actual doctor who treated Charlie upon being received at the emergency room that day, that horrible, tragic day. And the doctor, according to Andrew, explained that Charlie was a healthy guy, of course. He's athletic, and that luckily his body, the bullet lodged in his neck into his spine rather than exit. If it had exited, it could have hit people behind Charlie, potentially the security person who was there to protect Charlie, which, by the way, he's under scrutiny as well. A lot of online posts about him. Was he really protecting Charlie? What was one of the guys doing hand signals to give someone a message? I don't know. I think that's a little far-fetched. FBI Director Kash Patel, though, I'm sure is hearing this conversation. He stepped out yesterday with a message saying that every single angle of Charlie Kirk's assassination is under a microscope. That's his quote. We're going to look at everything. Now, some people have interpreted that to mean that, well, we're right. It's not as simple as a lone, troubled young man shooting one shot and killing Charlie Kirk. There's other stuff involved. That's why the FBI is looking at it. No, I think the FBI just looks at everything, as they should. In a post on X, Director Patel laid out exactly how far the Bureau is going. They're not just looking at this Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old accused shooter. They're digging into, quote, everything. The rooftop where the shot was fired, the angle of the bullet's impact, who the young shooter was talking to in Discord chats and other online posts, the text messages where he bragged about taking out Charlie, even odd hand signals, again, spotted in the crowd during the event at Utah Valley University. This is not just a manhunt anymore. It's a sweeping counter-terror probe, according to the FBI themselves. But Patel himself said that they're exploring whether the lone shooter had accomplices, people who may have funded him, knew about the plan, or failed to report it. I mean, look, it suggests that Charlie's death may not have been the act of one deranged young man, but potentially part of something broader. But it's just a theory. Hopefully, eventually, and sooner than later, we're going to know the details. Director Patel even addressed one of the wilder theories floating online, a small plane that appeared to go dark near Orem, Utah right around the time of the assassination. The FBI talked to the pilot and the FAA, and Patel said it wasn't a deliberate act, just a gap in flight data. Still, the fact that he brought it up shows how seriously they're taking public questions and rumors. They want to quell every question. Patel wrote, "We are examining every facet. We will not rest until justice is served." Now, all of this was happening the same day that thousands of Americans packed into State Farm Stadium in Arizona for his memorial. Millions more watched online, watched streaming, watched networks, with Vice President J.D. Vance telling the crowd, "We brought my dear friend Charlie Kirk home one last time. May God watch over Erica and their beautiful children." Here's the bottom line. The FBI isn't closing any doors. That's my interpretation of it. They're treating this not only as a high-profile political assassination, but as a possible coordinated effort. They got to rule it out. And they're promising to follow every lead until they can say conclusively what happened, who knew what, and whether anyone else has blood on their hands. And that's their job. That's what they should be doing. Do you think there's more to it than just a very disturbed, mentally ill young man who was living with a trans boyfriend who seemed to be upset that in his mind Charlie had said something about his boyfriend, not about him specifically, but about the trans lifestyle? I'm wide open, all ears. I'd love to hear your theories. There's even been suggestion that Israel had a part in it. Do you think there's more to Charlie Kirk's assassination? I'd love to hear your theory. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Just leave me a message, and always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com and place your orders. And boy, Michael Lindell has some great prices when you use promo code Joey. You just have to go to the website to see. MyPillow.com, use promo code Joey. By the way, Friday was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. We had a great day. I talked about it a good bit, had Sheriff Hobart Lewis and others on. But speaking of Mike Lindell, we give these officers what we call a Valor Pack. And it's just a little goodie bag, a gift bag. Well, Mike Lindell stepped up in a big way, and we got a MyPillow travel pillow for every single officer who came through last week. So Mike Lindell is struggling himself. He's still under attack. Let's step up and help keep this great American company in business. MyPillow.com, use promo code Joey. President Trump said on Saturday that his administration would make an announcement about its autism findings sometime today. Now, in his statement, he said, we're going to have an announcement on autism Monday. I think it's going to be a very important announcement. I think it's going to be one of the most important things we will have done. The Wall Street Journal reported that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. plans to announce that using Kenvue's popular over-the-counter pain medication, Tylenol, by pregnant women is potentially linked to autism, contrary to medical guidelines that say it's safe to use. Autism diagnosis in the United States has increased significantly just since 2000, intensifying public concern. By 2020, the U.S. autism rate in 8-year-olds was 1 in 36, or 2.77%, up from 2.27% in 2018 and 0.66% in 2000. This according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Mr. Kennedy has asserted that the U.S. is in the grip of an autism epidemic fueled by environmental toxins. Decades of research has not yielded firm answers on what contributes to autism, but many scientists believe genetics, potentially in combination with environmental influences, plays a role. So Trump teased this announcement that's coming up today, saying his administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Oz, would roll out a most favored nation model for drug pricing. This is meant to lower U.S. prescription drug prices to the lowest paid by countries that are members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This includes most of the world's largest economies, according to the authorities. So some big health announcements evidently coming through today on autism, on prescription drugs, and we'll see. We'll see. You know, one other quick thing on yesterday's memorial service, and these types of things, when you have a death of a friend or a family member, it kind of quite often brings things into perspective, and it bridges the gap between people sometimes. Well, there was a lot of speculation yesterday between or about Donald Trump and Elon Musk's relationship. The two were spotted shaking hands and sitting side by side in one of the executive suites at State Farm Stadium yesterday for the memorial service. Now, we all know that bromance, as a lot of people called it, between Musk and the president went from very intense in a good way to very intense in a bad way. It blew up. It was a billionaire's feud, and for a while there, it didn't appear they were even speaking. Yesterday, it appeared that Charlie Kirk's death may have brought them together, or at least started the conversation again. We shall see. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. There's a growing outcry for the accused killer of Charlie Kirk, if convicted, to be given the death sentence. And in Utah, that could mean being put to death by a firing squad. Now, look at the irony there. This young man is accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk by shooting him with a high-powered rifle from about 200 yards away with a single bullet. What's the irony there that he could potentially lose his life by death of a firing squad? Now, that's also an option in South Carolina, and it's been used recently. And it's created a whole new debate on methods of capital punishment. Cole Smith saw a gunshot wound appear on Brad Sigmund's chest before hearing the actual shot that ended the South Carolina death row inmates recently, ended his life. Smith said it was so strange. Now, Smith was identified as Mr. Sigmund's spiritual advisor, and he was sitting on the front row of the state-sanctioned execution back in March of this year. And Brad Sigmund chose the firing squad. Now, what he saw, according to medical experts and authorities, can be explained by the differing speeds at which light and sound travel. Mr. Smith, talking with the Post-and-Courier, described it as an unexpected occurrence in what was already a surreal experience. That experience, of course, witnessing a firing squad shoot Sigmund, his client, to death, or his I don't guess he'd be a client if he is a spiritual advisor, his protege, shooting him and ending his life. The execution method's first use in the U.S. since 2010. Now, it had been over a decade since South Carolina's death chamber had been used. There's been a lot of activity since, though. 4 prisoners have been executed by lethal injection and another 2 by firing squad within a 5-week interval. This is a record of executions. Now, the reason that they're doing so many is because we hadn't done one in so long. They've been held up because the only option until the law was changed was lethal injection. They couldn't get the drugs. So you couldn't get the drugs, so these inmates were choosing lethal injection rather than the electric chair, knowing that the state couldn't carry it out. So the state legislature, just over a year ago, passed the third option, which is the firing squad. And this allowed the state to ramp up executions following the passage of this bill. South Carolina's back-to-back executions coincide with an uptick across the country, resulting in 2025 having the highest number in over a decade. Now, as of September 17th, some 31 condemned inmates have been executed in 10 states, according to data compiled by the Death Penalty Information Center. Among them were 4 convicted murderers in South Carolina, nearly 15% of the total nationally. South Carolina, along with Texas, has the second highest execution number so far this year. Florida, where execution orders are issued by the governor rather than the courts, leads the count with 12. The country's running total this year, again, is the most since 2015, when 28 prisoners were put to death nationwide. The South Carolina Department of Corrections said it has carried out executions in accordance with the state legislature's policy decisions. Death warrants are issued by the South Carolina Supreme Court. Now, the recent rise in U.S. executions, according to Death Penalty Information Center, may be attributed to current political trends and court rulings. And I would suggest they're probably right, because the American people, the politicians, are tired of death sentences being handed out by juries of our peers, but yet these men, and I was about to say men and women, but I don't know that there are any women on death row presently. Primarily men sit on death row for decades. Elected officials in some states, according to Robin Mayer, the director of Death Penalty Information Center, said maybe scheduling the executions in an attempt to bolster their own tough-on-crime credentials in response to the White House call for increased use of the death penalty. Ms. Mayer said that the U.S. Supreme Court has also not granted any stays of executions in 25. She said this is a change from its historical role of granting stays to correct the errors that occur in many death penalty cases. I don't know that there's any evidence that there are errors in the ones that are being carried out. At the same time, capital punishment researchers emphasize that executions have risen and fallen throughout the nation's history as a result of socio-cultural factors. I don't know what those factors are. They go on to talk about within the last century, executions spiked in the 1930s during the Great Depression when people were suffering economically. This is according to a Fordham University Law School professor, Deborah Deno. Since 1999, she said executions nationwide have been on a downward trajectory for reasons that include lower public support for capital punishment and challenges related to the lethal injection method. We know that the lethal injection has had some problems, but by going to, and many states have added the another option of the firing squad, that has opened it back up. Ms. Deno said that, and she's been studying American executions going back to the 17th century colonial times. She says, I think it's a fluke and things will continue to fall back into the other direction. She also noted that the majority of this year's executions come from just a handful of states. Again, South Carolina being one of those, followed by Florida and Texas. The South Carolina Department of Corrections said that staffers who volunteered to participate in the past year's lethal injection and firing squad executions have had multiple sources of workplace support. They include first responder counseling services and access to the agency's critical incident stress management team, this according to Christy Shane. with the agency. The team's leader, she said, has witnessed more than 50 executions in other states, and all its members are certified by the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. I never had really thought about the idea of what the executioner might suffer from afterwards. I guess if you're one of, I think South Carolina in the firing squad, there's 3, so you know that one of the 3 fired the bullet that took someone's life. You just don't know which one, but you know 3 people could be responsible. The lethal injection, I'm not quite sure how that's done, but somebody has to open the IV for the medication to flow through the veins, eventually taking that life. I guess it would be tough knowing that you had taken someone's life. But I guess you could also make the argument that you know that you have helped carry out justice, that person had, in most cases, taken someone else's life, and you were just helping provide that family, the victim's family, with justice. I don't know. What do you think? Should the accused assassinator of Charlie Kirk, if he's convicted, receive the death penalty? And should he get the firing squad? Should that be what happens to this young man? That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, still in Phoenix. Bill Frady, Charlie James, and we're back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. for your first cup of coffee and more Sunrise Carolina. Till then, folks, remember, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.